Let's see what the news has in store for us this week. So, Copilot first, as usual. And here are the most notable UK news stories from the past 7 days. So, the top UK story is government surveillance expansion criticised by civil liberties groups. Several independent outlets reported concerns over new UK government proposal to widen digital surveillance powers. Civil rights organisations warned that the measures could weaken encryption and increase state access to private communications. This has been creeping up over time. This is why I've been doing and covering the Digital Bill of Rights that we need. If you haven't been watching the Digital Bill of Rights that are coming up on Wednesdays on YouTube, do go over and have a look. I've basically come up with a Digital Bill of Rights because we don't have one, not for us citizens, which, if it could go to government, would curtail all of the problems when it comes to surveillance. It covers digital ID, it covers the facial recognition technology, it covers gait analysis, voice analysis, it covers CBDCs, and if put in place, it would put pay to all of these problems. So the independent outlets reporting, I'm not sure who they are. This has come through from the Independent. Civil rights organisations are very concerned about this encroachment on our civil liberties. We should be free to walk around outside in public without the fear of being surveilled. And it is a big problem, and it's increasing and it's growing. So, how warned that the measures could weaken encryption. Not sure about that. And increase state access to private communications. That I think, well, we know they're already doing it. They're doing it in London. And what they're doing is they are announcing when they have digital surveillance. They actually put like a board up which says this area has digital surveillance, and there are a bit like traffic cams. You know, when you driving down the road and there's a traffic, there's a van at the end of the road that's clocking your speed. That kind of thing. They don't actually advertise that and tell you that it's there, but they are advertising that there's surveillance going on. But I think that they're actually behind the scenes surveilling us without us knowing as well. I think that that's probably been in place for quite a long time. And like I say, a digital bill of rights is something that we desperately need to curtail this infringement, because government has become a dictatorship and is basically doing exactly as it pleases without consulting any of the people who put them in power. Part 2. Grassroots activists highlight environmental damage from chemical spill in Scotland. Alternative media sources covered a tragic chemical spill on a tributary of the River Spey, which killed salmon and birds. Local ecological groups criticised the slow official response and called for stronger environmental protections. Well, this is a great concern. It's talking about environmental damage from the chemical spill. It's not saying where the chemical spill has come from. It's just saying that there was a tragic chemical spill on a tributary of the River Spey. That is tragic, especially the fact that it's killed salmon and it's killed birds. We know that there are a lot of problems when it comes to our water. And I mean, this is in Scotland, but I think over the whole of the country, we have problems with contaminated water and contaminating water when it comes to our waterways. So, yeah, very concerning. It's also concerning from the knock-on effect of what that's going to have environmentally as well. Point 3, community-led security efforts grow amid rising anti-Semitic incidents. Independent reporting noted that former Royal Marines were hired privately to protect synagogues and Jewish schools following concerns about inadequate state protection. This story gained traction in non-mainstream Jewish and community-focused outlets. Now, I find this really interesting from the anti-Semitic point of view that we spoke about last week. If you remember, I said about the conflation of anti-Zionism and anti-Jewish people. People who are against Zionists are not necessarily against Jewish people at all. And the conflation is causing conflict. There are problems with the conflation that is being fed to us through our government. We saw that 2 people were stabbed last week, and it was all across the media. And I said at the time that I hadn't seen anything. And we know that we're being surveilled, but for the whole of last week, all I saw was about these stabbings. But something that came to mind that I found interesting was there was also a Muslim man that was stabbed by the same aggressor, but that wasn't mentioned because it doesn't fit the rhetoric that this is an anti-Semitic attack. And there's been highlighted that the person who attacked these people was known. He'd come out from a mental institution, and he was known to be erratic, and he was known to be dangerous. And he didn't just attack 2 Jewish people and knife them. He attacked a Muslim person as well. So this wasn't an anti-Semitic attack. It has been farmed as one in order to garner support for Jewish people in this country. Now, I don't have a problem with people garnering support for any entity in this country that needs support. But I would argue that there are a lot of people who aren't Jewish who are frightened to walk around in London, frightened to walk in a lot of main cities, the fear of being assaulted, the fear of being attacked at all, just generally. And there have been inquiries into the rape gangs that have been operating across our country. And from what I know, there haven't been Marines hired privately to protect areas where known rape gangs have been operating. So this is another form of division by our government, again, because they will have mandated former Marines, hired privately, it says. So hired privately, possibly by the Jewish synagogues. But if you look at our government at the moment, all they're talking about is anti-Semitic behaviour and how people need to be protected from it. How about protecting every citizen that experiences abusive, aggressive behaviour? It shouldn't be more for one group and not for another. It shouldn't be more for Jewish people because of the fact that they're Jewish. I don't think they are being targeted just because they're Jewish. I think the attack in, I can't remember, Golders Green, was it? The attack in London, anyway. That it was definitely not an attack specifically at Jewish people. We spoke again about 3 weeks ago about false flags and saying that false flags are one of these things that are orchestrated in order for support to be garnered for a specific group. And this just smacks of that. Not the attack in London, because we know that that wasn't an anti-Semitic attack. That was a mentally ill man who unfortunately attacked 3 people. But yeah, this garnering support for specific groups against the actions of others is not on. Everybody should be protected, or nobody should be protected. Point 4. UK cost of living pressures intensify as London pint prices surpass £10. £10 for a pint. There's another reason why I wouldn't go to London anyway. Smaller economic and consumer advocacy publications highlighted the symbolic milestone of a £10 plus pint in London, using it to illustrate inflationary pressures and stagnating wages. Well, the cost of living pressures, I would say that the people who are really feeling the cost of living from a pressure point of view aren't going into pubs in London and paying £10 a pint. This is another way to shut down small little independent pubs that used to be the hub of the community, and it feels another form, a nail in the coffin of the individual person who used to go and meet up with friends and sit and put the world to rights. All the old boys that used to sit in the pubs. Pubs aren't pubs anymore. They've become restaurant pubs, restaurant hubs. So for the publican to make money, they need to diversify. So therefore, most of them have had to put food on, and that will be the main revenue that comes through. And the alcohol is sold on the side now. It's really rare to find a pub that doesn't do food. It's just a wet pub. So I don't think that's got to do with the cost of living pressures, because people who are experiencing a tightening of the belt won't be going into £10 plus pint pubs. They'll be buying probably 4 cans out of a supermarket and sitting at home. It's probably drinking at home. Point 5. Grassroots political tensions rise around Reform UK and local elections. Our elections are tomorrow. Yours will be too. So this is going out to you on Sunday on YouTube, but this is Wednesday on Twitch. So yeah, our elections are tomorrow. It will be really interesting. I've had so much rubbish come through my door over the elections, and it goes straight through my door out into the recycling bin. Non-mainstream political blogs and independent commentators focused on disputes involving Reform UK candidates, including allegations of harassment and campaign trail confrontations in Glasgow and Wales. Good. I'm glad there've been confrontations. I saw something on social media where there was a chap who knocked on somebody's door. It was video, obviously. A chap who knocked on somebody's door to say, "Will you vote Labour?" And he got an absolute mouthful from the householder. So I think that was a no. Obviously knocked on the wrong door. Point 6. Local communities shaken by multiple violent incidents. Independent regional outlets reported on several serious incidents, including a Bristol house explosion that killed 2 people. Wow. A Brixton shooting that left 4 injured. A Channel crossing tragedy in which 2 women died attempting to reach the UK. These stories were widely covered by local and alternative news sources. We have no context. We have no context at all. The house explosion says it killed 2 people. That's definitely a serious incident. It could have been a gas leak. It could have been anything. We have no context for that. A Brixton shooting that left 4 injured. Well, a shooting is a shooting. And as gun laws are, as guns are illegal, we don't have gun laws because we don't have guns. So that could be anything. A Brixton shooting, 4 injured. That if somebody is using a gun, I would imagine that that's some form of criminal element that is involved. So the 4 that were injured, possibly not innocent, could be. I mean, I'm speculating here. Allegedly, it could be. And the Channel crossing tragedy in which 2 women died. Stop trying to cross the Channel to come to the UK. Stop it. Point 7. Grassroots climate groups respond to UK's joining EU's 78 billion Ukraine loan scheme talks. Smaller foreign policy and anti-war publications discuss the UK entering talks to join the EU's large-scale Ukrainian loan programme, with activists questioning long-term financial and geopolitical implications. I would question that. I'm not an activist. I'm a vocal annoyance to certain people, but I'm not an activist. But I would question that. 78 billion from the EU. I would say that our money needs to be utilised in our country. We've just heard about the cost of living crisis, £10 a pint in a pub. But the general citizens in this country need help when it comes to things like their petrol prices. Cut the tax. And if cutting the tax means that you don't get as much money, then maybe you don't have as much to plough into the 78 billion that's going to go off to Ukraine. Cut our gas prices, cut our electric prices, because that means there wouldn't be quite so much going into the pockets of the shareholders. But no, that wouldn't be good, would it? What counts as non-mainstream? For this roundup, I excluded BBC, Sky, ITV and Channel 4, The Guardian, Telegraph, Times, Independent, Daily Mail, Mirror, Sun, major wire services, Reuters, AP and PA. I focused instead on stories that originated in independent, local or alternative outlets, or were highlighted by grassroots groups but later referenced in mainstream aggregators. So Copilot's now trying to give me explanations of who he's looking at. I say he. Copilot could be a female. Would you like hyperlocal independent news? No, we don't. Thanks, Copilot. Just basically went to the independent on all of them. Nothing that I would really drill down on. Just more tensions, basically. Okay. So that was Copilot. Now we'll ask the same thing of Claude. So here's a roundup of the biggest UK news stories according to Claude. Point 1, Super Election Day, tomorrow the 7th, as I've said. The UK is on the eve of its biggest electoral moment since the 2024 general election. Elections taking place across the UK on Thursday, the 7th of May, include local government elections, Scottish parliamentary elections, Synod Cymru elections, and mayoral elections in England. Forecasts from Britain's elects suggest Labour may be about to lose 2/3 of its councillors, a historic collapse for a party that won a landslide just 2 years ago. 3 eastern counties, Essex, Norfolk and Suffolk, are projected to flip to Reform. Labour is projected to lose control in Wigan, Sunderland and Barnsley. Ha ha ha! Oh, great. Maybe then they'll get the picture that the citizens are very, very unhappy. Very unhappy with Labour. Over the last 2 years, Labour have managed to completely destroy their reputation as the people's alternative to controlling politicians. They have completely destroyed that narrative. Now, when you ask anybody about Labour, the very first thing you think is dictators. Dictators. They've tried to, well, they have. They've curtailed our jury process. They've curtailed our right to protest. They've put digital surveillance in, and none of it was with consultation with the citizens that put them in power. None of it. And none of it was part of their manifesto when they were put into power. All the stuff that they said they were going to do, they didn't. And every single citizen in this country is absolutely sick to the back teeth of being lied to and then being gaslit, that we can't believe exactly what we see. It's just horrendous. And tomorrow they're going to find out how we feel. So next week, next week we'll probably be talking about the fact that they've lost all their seats. I can't see them retaining hardly any. I really think they will retain the Northeast, though, although Sunderland, that's in the Northeast. We'll see. Okay, point 2. Wales set for political earthquake. A change of government is expected in Wales, where Labour trails both Plaid Cymru and Reform UK in the polls. Labour has governed Wales since devolution began in 1999. The 2026 Senate election is also the first to use a reformed voting system, expanding the Senate from 60 to 96 members and adopting a party list proportional representation model. Well, that'll be interesting to watch. We'll see if Wales can set the precedent. Wales have already set the precedent on basically taking their politicians to task if they lie to their citizens, which I think we should have in Britain. I think that should be UK wide. I think if a politician lies to its citizens and is found to be lying, they should be completely stripped of all their power, their position, and never be allowed to hold a position of power again. They are untrustworthy, and when they are found to be lying, they are not worthy of the position that they've been placed in. That's why I refuse to call Starmer Sir. Not very dignified behaviour as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, they should all be stripped of their positions if they're found to be lying. And that probably means that we'd lose all of our politicians, which would really be good, because then the power could come back to the people and we could come back to basically governance, I think, by citizens, by the citizens. Get back to common law. Just a thought. Point 3. SNP eyes independence mandate in Scotland. So it's kicking off in Wales and it's kicking off in Scotland. In Scotland, the SNP is forecast to take a 5th successive victory, potentially with an outright majority, which the party will claim provides a mandate for independence referendum. I don't really know whether... I mean, we had a referendum on the EU, and look what happened. Starmer wants to take us back in. So let's see how Scotland do if they want a mandate on independence. It'd be interesting to see how the Scottish vote. Okay, point 4. Reform UK's rise, reshaping English politics. I don't think Reform UK are rising. At the moment, Reform UK just seem to be the best of a really bad bunch. A really bad bunch. And best is probably not the right word to use. Reform UK are expecting to make significant gains in the West Midlands, being in contention to top the poll in all 13 council areas, including double-digit vote share leads in 7 of them. The YouGov MRP model puts Reform median vote share across the region at 30%, as high as 45% in Cannock Chase. Meanwhile, the Gorton and Denton by-election offered a striking snapshot of a changing political landscape. Among Muslim voters, the result was a landslide for Green candidate Hannah Spencer, while among white voters, Reform UK performed strongly. Well, again, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on, see what happens. But we all know that it doesn't matter who's in power. It really doesn't matter who's in power. They all have to kowtow to the global elites. They call themselves elites. I shouldn't really call them elites. The overlords. They all kowtow to the overlords. So they're effectively all just different cheeks to the same backside. So when whoever gets in power, it won't make any difference. That's why I firmly believe we need to disband our government. Point 5. The Mandelson-Epstein scandal continues to haunt Starmer. This remains the defining crisis of Starmer's premiership. Starmer's chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney, resigned over the appointment of Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the United States after files revealed the extent of Mandelson's relationship with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Police raided 2 of Mandelson's properties as part of their investigation into misconduct in public office. I said at the time that that's not just the only part when it comes to the offences for Mandelson. I can't believe they're only looking at the misconduct in public office. The scandal has brought down several government figures, including Starmer's chief of staff, Morgan McSweeney, and Ollie Robbins, a top civil servant in the Foreign Office. Several people have called on Starmer to resign. Whenever I look at what Starmer posts on X, it's hilarious to watch him get ratioed. The ratios are, I saw a post just earlier today, and he'd written something. I can't, every time I see what he writes, I hear his voice, and I can't stand, man. I can't stand his voice. It's like a drill through my brain. So I don't tend to read what he writes, but I do look at the figures. And he'd got about 800 odd likes and about 2,500 comments. And when you open the comments up, they're nearly all resign. So I would argue that several people have called on Starmer to resign. I would suggest that probably 3/4 of the country would like Starmer to resign. At least 3/4. I think it's a very conservative effort. Okay. UK acquires its own Iron Dome air defence system. Seriously. UK Ministry of Defence announced it is purchasing Skyhammer air defence systems from UK headquartered Cambridge Aerospace, with deliveries starting from May. So we're in May. The system has a range of over 30 kilometres and a top speed of 700 kilometres an hour, enabling it to intercept drones and low-speed missiles. Critics and defence analysts have questioned the system's usefulness against the types of strategic weapons that might realistically threaten the UK. Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, dear. If you have been watching the illegal war that Israel and the US are waging against Iran, you would see that their completely infallible Iron Dome broke very quickly. And yeah, Tel Aviv is in pieces. So the technology doesn't really work, does it? And it's another way of parceling money into the hands of people who love war. And this will be what our taxes are going to. I wonder if the UK citizens were asked if they wanted an Iron Dome. That's not going to bloody work. It beggars belief. And I really don't think that drones and missiles, critics and defence analysts have questioned the system's usefulness against the types of strategic weapons that might realistically threaten the UK. The kind of weapons that would realistically threaten the UK, I would suggest, are more along the cyber line, like cyber attacks, issues like that. I think that, and I wonder who they think is going to attack us. It certainly is not going to be Russia. Like we're led to believe by the powers that ought not to be that we could be under threat from Russia. I really don't think that we are. I think they want to keep us in a perpetual state of fear for some reason. And this is just a way to put a load of money into the pockets of people who love war. Point 7. Reforms 70 to 90 billion fiscal black hole. New analysis suggests Reform's flagship economic plan, which the party claims would net huge savings, would actually cost the UK around 70 to 90 billion over the next 10 years, based on official statistics and forecasts. The funding has received little attention in mainstream press. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That's along the lines of Labour making all these promises and not giving us anything. I would say that Reform are doing exactly the same. Oh, we're going to make things. We're going to make huge net savings. It's going to be brilliant. No, we're not. No, we're not. Point 8. Big tech on trial. Social media liability breakthrough. 2 recent verdicts finding social media companies liable for harms suffered by users have, for the first time, pierced the legal shield that has long protected tech giants from accountability for the negative effects of their products. Now, how interesting is that? So, I haven't heard anything about this. Now I've said that, it will probably be coming up for the next week. Maybe I just get the news by AI the day that it happens, and then everybody reports it the week after. 2 recent verdicts. I didn't know anything about this. So liable for harms. We don't have much context. This is from Byline Times. So liable for harms. Harms along the lines of derogatory comments, possibly. I can't. I'm trying to rack my brain as to what could harm somebody when it comes to social media. I mean, I'm thinking of somebody possibly unaliving themselves if they've, I don't know, taken something to heart that comes through social media, or the possibility that somebody has become outraged and done something unspeakable because of something they've seen on social media, and therefore that has made them accountable. I really don't know, but we'll watch it through the week and see what's going on. So that's it from Claude, and now we'll go to good old Grok, and we'll ask Grok the same question. So here are the top news stories for the past 7 days according to Grok. See what he puts as number 1. It's the Golders Green knife attack and the rise in anti-Semitic incidents. Well, we have covered this. So on April the 29th, now this, I suppose it was within the last week, April 29th, a man stabbed 2 Jewish men in Golders Green, North London, in what police treated as a terrorist incident. The attacker allegedly targeted visibly Jewish people. A 45-year-old suspect was arrested. Now, we know that that's not true, so why Grok is coming through with that, I really don't know. Because he didn't just target the 2 Jewish men, he targeted an Islamic man as well in Golders Green. And we also know that this man was mentally unwell. This sparked widespread outrage and highlighted ongoing safety concerns for the Jewish community. The UK terrorism threat level raised to severe from substantial on around April the 30th to May the 1st by the Joint Terrorism Analysis Centre, JTAC. Officials cited the attack plus broader Islamist and extremist right-wing threats and Middle East tensions, not solely the Golders Green incident. Alternative voices described it as sickeningly predictable due to prior incidents and criticised authorities for failing to protect communities. Well, like I say, we've covered this, and it's annoying. It's annoying that it's being put at, well, I mean, the fact that they call it a terrorist incident. It isn't a terrorist incident. It was a terrible incident, and it will have terrorised the people of Golders Green. So I suppose from that aspect, you could say it was a terrorist incident. But when we talk about terrorist incidents, when we think about that kind of thing, we think about a pre-planned, organized group of people who come in and do something outrageously bad because they will have some form of political gain or some form of gain for the group that they're acting for. And that's not what this is. So the way that it's been couched is it's absolutely diabolical. And it's again trying to pit people against people instead of us all coming together and looking at our overlords and going, no. They want us to look at each other and go, no. It sickens me. Point 2. Sorry. Sorry, I'm getting very agitated. Maybe we shouldn't be covering the news. Point 2. Green Party leader Zach Polanski and local election controversies. With local elections approaching in May the 7th, tomorrow, Green Party leader Zach Polanski has been prominent. Stories include allegations of anti-Semitism involving Green candidates' councillors, reports of dozens under investigation, Polanski facing scrutiny over past statements claiming to be a British Red Cross spokesperson, and his party's handling of internal issues. Green ambitions for big gains, targeting hundreds, thousands of seats, wealth taxes, public ownership, and positioning as an alternative to Labour. Left-leaning outlets like Novara Media covered related protests and Starmer reactions. Others debated the party's law and order stance and anti-Semitism problems. I have seen a lot of stuff on social media about Zach Polanski, and it was like deja vu. Cast your mind back to all the anti-Semitism stuff and all of the bad-mouthing of Mr. Jeremy Corbyn. Anytime anybody who has a little bit of wherewithal becomes a politician, anytime anybody who has a streak of honesty and actually wants to help the citizens of this country becomes a politician, that's absolutely fine until they start to be recognised, until people start to really like them. And people really liked Jeremy Corbyn. And what happened? As soon as he garnered as much support as he did, that was it. There were news stories about him. They effectively unseated him from the Labour Party completely. And we have since found out that it was a propaganda campaign by Labour Together. So it would not surprise me in the slightest if this is exactly the same. Because Zach Polanski is a man with a bit of wherewithal. Zach Polanski is a man who has a streak of honesty running through him. And Zach Polanski has now gained momentum. So it's his turn to be propagandized. We are having to put up with all the usual bull crap that comes out when there's somebody that the establishment don't like and that we do. So they're going to try and get him out. Mark my words. Mark my words. That's what this is about. And it may take a while. It's taken a while for everything to come to the surface over the unseating of Jeremy Corbyn. And that was all down to Morgan McSweeney, Peter Mandelson, and Starmer. And it's just come out. And that was a while ago. So it might take a while to come out. But I'm telling you that they're going after Zach Polanski now because the people like him. Like I say, he's got a bit of wherewithal. He's got a bit of honesty. Can't have that in politics. Point 3. Economic pressures and borrowing costs. UK government borrowing costs hit highs not seen in nearly 30 years, linked to Iran-related global tensions, debt concerns, and Chancellor Rachel Reeves' position under scrutiny. Discussions in alternative outlets touched on recession risks from wider geopolitical issues and critiques of Labour's economic handling. If we are in a recession risk, why would we be giving billions of pounds to Ukraine. If we are in recession risk, why would all the shareholders of all the big major companies, the gas, the oil, the electricity, why would they all be getting massive dividends if we're in a recession risk? Because our government don't know how to manage our money so that we're not in a recession risk. It's got nothing to do. Well, it's got something to do with Iran. Iran have put the pressure on, but our government are just walking around like headless chickens going, oh, no, we don't know what to do. Yes, we do know what to do. Lower the taxes, stop giving money to countries that we don't need to give money to, and plough it back into our country. Start getting our gas and our oil from our own shores and become a little bit self-sufficient, and stop giving money away to other countries. Other notable mentions: royal and international stories. King Charles related diplomacy. Trump Scotch whisky tariffs. And Sarah Ferguson royal family updates appeared in various feeds. Not very interesting. Ongoing migrant refugee policy debates, ECHR discussions and foreign policy, Russia diplomat expulsions and Iran tensions. Yeah, okay. Broader alternative media themes, critiques of government responses to anti-Semitism. Yes, I just critique them. But I critique them on the fact that they're going to try and put into place a lot of money and a lot of support and a lot of security for one group of people in this country. Free speech concerns and campus protest crackdowns and warnings about societal divisions. That's what they want. They want societal division. They would rather you argue with your neighbour than argue with them. And that's it. That's it from Grok. So absolutely nothing that I would look at from a health and wellbeing point of view. Again, it's been very political, but then it will be because we've got the local elections coming up tomorrow. But for this week, that's it. That's the news for this week.